We are delighted to have today with us Dr. Sarit Szpiro from Haifa University. Dr. Szpiro did her BSc in Mathematics and Cognitive Science at the Hebrew University and then an MA in Cognitive Psychology at Tel Aviv University. She continued to do a PhD in Cognitive Psychology at NYU under the supervision of Professor Marisa Carrasco, studying perceptual learning and attention. After her PhD, she continued her research studying assistive technologies in the fields of human-computer interaction, doing a postdoc at Cornell Tech, supervised by Professor Shiri Azenkot, and Harvard Medical School with Professor Gabriel Krayman and Professor Eli Pelli. In between, she also worked as a data scientist in various companies, including Amazon Alexa. After her postdoc, she joined the Special Education Department at the Faculty of Education of the University of Haifa, and she's also a member of the Edmond J. Safra Brain Research Center for the Study of Learning Disabilities and of the Haifa Brain and Behavior Hub. She's the head of the Ampli Lab, which focuses on amplifying people's abilities in and outside the lab. Her lab investigates vision in and outside the lab with the goal to impact life outside the lab. To do that, her lab characterizes the real-world challenges people with disabilities face in order to develop effective assistive technologies. Her research also focuses on visual perception, learning, and attention. Her work spans assistive technologies and visual processing studies across typical and atypical populations such as low vision. The lab uses augmented reality, eye tracking, voice and sound technologies, and develops new technologies to improve real-life functioning. She publishes her research in both basic science journals as well as more applied research venues and computer science conferences. Her research is funded by multiple grants, including from the Israeli Science Foundation, Pro Mobilia Foundation, Minerva AR Center, Psychobiology Institute in Israel, and AI and data science grants. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome you, Sarit, to our seminar to hear about your exciting research, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Sharon, for the nice introduction. And now I have no time to actually present. It was very long. Okay, so a bit about my lab. We're called the Ampli Lab. And our goal, as Sharon mentioned, was to amplify people's abilities with science and technology. And in the lab, we have people ranging working on different topics, including aging, visual development in children, autism, visual and auditory processes, and augmented reality and low vision. And also the lab has different backgrounds of students. So from special education to occupational therapist, audiologist, cognitive psychologist, optometrist, and software engineers. So it's quite a bunch of people. So today I'm gonna split the talk into two domains of research we do at the lab. The first is more classic psychophysical studies where we examine different processes in vision, looking at how people process information and how experience changes that. And then we have also another domain of study which relates to augmented reality. And here we try to examine how we can reshape vision immediately using augmented reality. So the type of tasks are very different. So in the psychophysics tasks, it's usually done in front of a monitor, sitting down, whereas in the augmented reality task, it's more like moving around and trying to get out of the lab. And I really enjoy doing both, so that's what we're working on. So I'm gonna try to present quite a few studies. Not all of them will be into a lot of depth, so just to get a sense of what we're working on in the lab. So for the psychophysics, which we're gonna start, we're gonna examine different populations and also different timescales of how experience modifies vision. So when we talk about experience, I'm talking more in the formal sense of priors. And what we're interested in is how priors affect our perception, given that we have some sensory input, the likelihood function. And the prior can be built at different time scales. So from long term, say a lifetime or even birth, to medium term, which could be days, to short term, which could be minutes. So I'm going to try to present some studies that tackle each of these. And we're going to start with lifetime. So in terms of a lifetime prior that we have, one very common, I would say, prior that I have been studying a lot is the cardinal prior. In this prior actually relates to the orientation, distribution of orientation in scenes. So if we look at different orientations that exist in a visual scene, the distribution of these orientations is not uniform, but in fact we have a horizontal and frequent and vertical orientations more frequent in our environment. So how does this relate to human behavior? Maybe it doesn't, but happily it does. So we have an interesting link here between what happens in the environment and in physiology. So we have more cells encoding the horizontal and vertical orientations. And also we have this phenomena in perception that relates to these cardinal priors where perception, actually the thresholds are lower for these more frequent orientations, so the cardinals. So what about children? So children have less prior experience because simply they're younger. So maybe they will have less of this horizontal prior. But on the other hand, their perception is overall worse than adults. So maybe they actually rely more on the prior that they have. So we started to study this, and Iman Mahajne, who was a master's student in the lab, led this study. So to reiterate what we know about the adults, so in terms of thresholds, we know that their thresholds are better for the cardinals. This has been shown in many, many different studies, very classical work, even moving back 100 years. In terms of estimation, so estimation is a slightly different task where you have to actually tilt a line or using the mouse to estimate the motion direction or the orientation of a stimulus. And here the effect maybe counterintuitively is that there is more overestimation from the cardinals versus the obliques. So if two orientations appear very close to the horizontal, they actually are perceived to be further away. So there's more overestimation from the cardinals. So why does this happen? Several computational models have suggested qualitatively that the two are linked. And we recently showed using efficient encoding model that indeed there can be improved sensitivity and overestimation at the same time from the cardinals. So to our question today is what happens with children? So on the one hand, maybe they won't have this cardinal prior. So they have, as I said, less visual experience. They also have a very different visual diet. So recent studies have actually used head-worn cameras and found that what a mother sees versus what her infant sees is very different, and the composition of orientation between the two is also different. So this could definitely affect their experience with cardinal orientations. On the other hand, maybe they would exhibit this cardinal prior. So we know that motion sensitivity develops gradually with age. And when sensitivity is worse, we expect participants to actually rely more on their prior. So maybe they will have an increased prior effect. And some studies have suggested that it could be more pronounced below the age of 8, but the results were actually kind of mixed. So for our experiment today, we will examine thresholds in adults, and we expect to find this horizontal prior. We're not sure what will happen with children. For the estimation, we know that for adults, we have this phenomena of overestimation from the horizontal, but we actually don't know what happens when we take into account the differences in thresholds between the horizontal and the oblique. And for the children, we will also take into account the threshold differences between the horizontal and oblique, and also what will be threshold differences between the two groups, so the adults and the children. So for this study, we had two groups. Actually, we had three groups, but I won't show you the last group. If you have questions, I'll answer. So for the trial sequence, participants viewed an RDK stimulus. So the dots are moving. Most of them are moving randomly, but some of them are moving coherently. And the coherent dots might be moving either below or above the horizontal, or below or above the oblique, and the participants have to discriminate whether the motion direction was clockwise or anti-clockwise. And we measured their threshold using a staircase. So for our results, we see here the motion coherence thresholds for the horizontal directions and for the oblique directions. And as you can see, we have this phenomena that we expected, that for the horizontal, the thresholds are lower than for the oblique. So lower here is better. So what happens with the children? So first of all, you can see that for the children, the thresholds are higher, so their perception is worse. And we can also see there is a difference between horizontal and oblique. So they do have this prior effect. And we also found an interaction. So the difference between the horizontal and the oblique was larger in children. So overall, they have reduced thresholds and a larger difference between oblique and horizontal. So what happens to overestimations, especially when accounting for the threshold differences that weren't accounted for in previous studies? So now participants view a very similar stimulus, but now it is presented at threshold. So we compute first their threshold using the discrimination task, and they see the stimulus at threshold, and they have to estimate using a mouse the exact motion direction, and they're going to do this task both for the horizontal and for the oblique. Okay, so for our results on the y-axis, there is the mean estimate of motion direction, and the actual stimulus motion was 10. And as you can see, for the horizontal, we have this overestimation as we expected, but now we know that it happens even when accounting for the threshold differences. And for the oblique, there is no overestimation. So we have this effect. And for the children group, we see also a large difference between horizontal and oblique. And we again have this interaction such that the difference between oblique and horizontal is larger in children. So what we found was here in this study, a larger effect of the prior in children than in adults, both in thresholds and in estimations. So when we account for the threshold differences. So why does this happen? Possibly this is because their thresholds are indeed in children are higher, so they maybe rely more on the prior. but I don't think this is the full story, so I'm happy to hear ideas. So for our next step, we wanted to test what happens when you improve sensitivity. So we know that the sensitivity of children, their thresholds were worse. So what happens if we improve it using training? So this brings us to our next time that we look at experience, and now we are looking at it in terms of days. So what happens if we modify experience through days when we have consolidation and when we have deliberate practice? So perceptual learning is defined as long-term improvements in sensory tasks after training, and it has been found in many modalities, including vision and audition. And usually it does not show any transfer, so the training is very specific to the task and to the stimuli that you trained on. So what we wanted to examine is how does perceptual learning differ across development? And can we develop a perceptual learning protocol that can be used for clinical populations? So in terms of children, there are very few studies that directly compare children with typical perception to adults. And the two studies that are mentioned here actually found that children have different mechanisms of perceptual learning than adults. But these studies actually used not goal-directed learning, at least one of them, and the other study didn't test learning across time, so across days. It was only a single session. So our goal now here was to actually compare both children and adults with using a classic perceptual learning paradigm with the motion direction task. And this was led by Maisa Agarbia. And what we examine and what we see here is the results for the pretest in children and in adults. And we have a trained direction or to be trained and an untrained. And this is the pretest results for both children and adults, and they didn't differ significantly. And after training, we can see that they also didn't differ. So there was no significant difference in the rate of learning or in the transfer of learning between children and adults. So this maybe can be considered slightly counterintuitive, given that many studies have suggested that sensory plasticity should be possibly enhanced in children, but it is possible that for this age, which is 8 to 10, there is no significant differences, and maybe only in task-irrelevant type of learning tasks.
Sarit, may I ask a question? I mean, I can also leave it to the end.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask if this was the same motion coherence paradigm as the previous study, because I see that the thresholds here, or maybe I'm mistaken, but they seem different, higher.
Yeah, it's not exactly the same paradigm. It's very similar, but here the testing was a bit shorter. So it's possible
Oh,
that
influence.
I agree, and we also didn't find this large differences in overall thresholds between the children and adults. So it's
Okay.
possible that it depends on the exact parameters of the testing.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so children are one population to examine. What about older adults? So we recently showed that there is a correlation in visual and auditory decline in older adults. And what we wanted to do is to examine whether we can design a perceptual learning intervention. So this study was done by Mais Abbas, and this started the collaboration, which seems to be going very well with Hanin Karawani, who is an audiologist at the communication department. So we are now doing a lot of studies relating to audiovisual processing. So specifically for perceptual learning, our question was how does learning in one modality relate to another modality? And we designed cross-model perceptual learning paradigm. So what do we know about cross-model perceptual learning? So some studies have suggested that there are similarities between perceptual learning and in vision and in audition, but these weren't direct comparisons. And other studies that did do comparison examined cross-model transfers, but the results are not consistent. So some found no transfer at all, and some found unidirectional transfer. And this relates to the types of tasks and stimuli that were trained. So in all of these studies, they targeted the shared stimulus sensory features across vision and audition. So for example, temporal or spatial judgments can be done both in vision and audition. And then you have a dominant modality that can instruct the less dominant modality. And then you can have transfer between the tasks. So what we wanted to do here is actually test two tasks that have shared computational principle, but no low-level feature similarity. So the goal, the task that we used was to detect a dynamic signal and noise tasks, and we're going to use the famous motion direction discrimination, by now hopefully famous in this talk. So this will be the visual task, and for the auditory task, it was pseudo words and noise. So again, now that's again a signal in noise, and it's across time. So it's similar to the motion direction, but it's not the same features at all. So you have two words, pseudo words like binta, pinta, and it's covered by noise, and you have to discriminate whether they were the same or different. And so for our training protocol, we had actually quite a lot of subjects, 45 participants, and the protocol was included 3 testing sessions. All the testing sessions happened in the lab. And in the testing sessions, we examined to-be-trained tasks, so the auditory and the visual task. And we also examined 2 untrained tasks. Then all the participants were split into 3 groups. One group trained first on vision, then on audition. The other group trained on audition, then on vision. And we had a control group that did a typical reading comprehension task or hearing comprehension task, listening task. And this, all of this training was done at home. So they only come into the lab for the testing sessions. Okay, so for our results, so first we will start with the auditory tasks. So here higher is better, so more noise. And first we can see the expected results. So when you train on the pseudo words task, you improve on the task. But surprisingly, what we also found is that when the group that trained on the visual task, they also improve on the pseudo words and noise task. Moreover, we also find that even after you train on the auditory task and improve in it, when you train on the visual task, you also improve in the auditory task. And when you directly train on the auditory task, you also improve. And we can see it here in this graph. So this shows the improvements. And you can see that the slope is higher when you directly train on a task. Maybe actually I should be here. When you directly train on a task versus indirectly, but you still get gains even when you're training on the other modality. And you don't get any gains if you're in the control group. And importantly, it also doesn't matter which phase you started. If you started vision first or audition first, you get the gains anyway. Whoops, sorry, I forgot to change the title. So this is the visual task. Okay, so for the visual task now, lower is actually better. So you have more noise if you're lower. And what we see here is that if you train on the visual task, then you improve. So this is expected. But interestingly, also when you train on the auditory task, you also get gains on the visual test. And you further improve when you train on the auditory task, you further improve in your visual task. And when you have direct training, you improve even more. And I didn't put the graph here, but actually these types of learning, when you shift modality, are correlated. So the amount of learning that you get by direct training correlates to the amount of learning that you get when you shift the modality to a different modality. So you continue to improve even if you're not directly training. And happily, it also doesn't matter which training order you start. So neither for the vision and then nor for the audition, you always get a similar amount of gains. So we also had two tasks that were not trained at all, and do not rely on noise or signal across time. So one task was frequency discrimination in audition, and in vision, spatial frequency discrimination in Gabor. And for the spatial frequency, what we find is only significant learning only if you have the full two-phase training in both of the groups that had training, but not in the control. And this is different from the auditory task where you get some gains at the beginning, but then it doesn't continue to improve further. Okay, so to summarize, we show here cross-model transfer of high-level signal-to-noise learning from vision to audition and vice versa. We also show dual training. So if you train on multiple modalities, you can enhance your learning. So it's better to train both on vision and on audition than just keep it only on audition or only on vision. And the training order doesn't matter. So it doesn't affect your overall gains if you started first with audition or first with vision. So in general, we want to examine plasticity across ages. So what did I show you until now? I showed you results on children showing similar learning to adults. This was the study by Maisa. And I showed you perceptual learning in both vision and audition in young adults and cross-modal transfer. And this was the study that Hanin led. And Hanin already actually collected two additional groups that I think will be very interesting for next steps. Older adults, so we know they have auditory and visual decline. So what happens to their plasticity, and does it differ between vision and audition? So this is coming up in a few weeks. And the next group actually has sensory impairment, so hearing impairment. So we will be able to examine how plasticity differs between modalities when one modality is impaired. So until now, I discussed experience in terms of lifetime, days. What about minutes? So I won't have time to discuss this in detail, but one way to examine experience in short term also relates to the study, to the talk last week that we had about dynamic facial expressions. So emotional facial expressions change very quickly. And here we wanted to examine what happens when they are modified. And what this study was done by Renana Twito and in collaboration with Bachi Haddad. And here we wanted to examine what happens when first participants see facial expression with one emotion, like angry, but then it changes to another expression, like sad. And we find that we were specifically interested in what happens with people with autism, where we know that priors can be altered. But what we found was interesting is that the problem was the shift of the emotional facial expression. It's not that they do not process the facial expression at all. They do, and they can learn how to use it. But then when the facial expression shifts, like she's not angry anymore, they have a difficulty updating it. Okay, so this was a brief summary of studies in the basic visual science psychophysics. So I can move on to the augmented reality unless there's a quick clarification question. Okay. So I'm gonna move on. So in augmented reality is the ability to actually put virtual elements in the real environment. This could be done in different ways, but specifically I'm talking about using augmented reality glasses, like these ones are the HoloLens. And we have been using augmented reality, especially to try to augment the environment to help people with low vision. So low vision entails a variety of conditions. So in some of the studies, we actually try to test as many conditions as possible to try to see if something can help. But we also sometimes target specific populations. So low vision affects a variety of tasks, as you can imagine, from activities of daily living to mental health. And specifically, we are going to examine mobility, which is the ability to walk safely from point A to point B. And it's important to note that people with low vision don't really use that many tools that are used for the blinds that people use, like white canes or guide dogs. This shouldn't be surprising for a vision science crowd. They like to rely on their residual vision. So augmented reality for low vision has been studied before. For example, we have shown that it can help in a shopping task, for example, by using augmented reality cues to cue target products when you're going shopping. It can also, others have shown that it can also help by reading door signs. And we also showed that it can help in a museum visit. So for example, to alert you from an upcoming obstacle or draw your attention to a specific artifact when walking in a museum. But this study was not very well controlled because we used a live remote assistant that controlled the augmented reality markings that you can see here. So we wanted to test this more rigorously, and we wanted to also focus specifically on mobility. So what has been done, there's many studies on low vision and different tools. So some of them, for example, use magnification for tunnel vision. And there are more recent studies as well. And other studies have used the depth information and overlaid it on the scene to try to help alert people from obstacles. But this is not very useful because it has a lot of colors. So you have different colors for different depths, and too much visual information actually leads to a disruptive experience. So I would like to mention something about these studies. So this was quantitative studies, and they found that people can actually navigate better with these tools, but this was a qualitative study. And it turns out that the two are very important to be measured when you're doing these types of experiments, because it might be helpful for them to succeed in a mobility task, but then people don't actually want to wear them. So I thought this was an interesting contrast. But we wanted to use this experience and try to, instead of having a lot of visual information on the scene, just augment specific objects. So this has been done before in some objects, for example, stairs, trying to augment the visibility of stairs so the changes in depth are difficult to perceive. And a recent study cued obstacles by using boxes, and they found that word-locked cues are helpful. So word-locked in terms of augmented reality means that it's locked to the object in space rather than head-locked, which is locked to your glasses. So when you move around, they move around with you, these cues. But this study actually found promising effects, but they were rather modest to what we expect. So we wanted to build on this and actually improve the cues and make them more natural and see whether it can help. So this study was done by Lior Maman, who was a master's student in the lab, and now she's a PhD student in the lab. And we are going to use specific objects, and we're gonna highlight them using augmented reality. But it's important to note that object detection is too slow right now for real-time use, and this obviously deteriorates user experience. We also, in a separate study, actually have a condition testing exactly this. So instead of relying on computer vision, we use the technique that is called the Wizard of Oz, where we simulate the abilities of a system that has the best possible computer vision. And we simulate it by knowing ahead of time where the obstacles are. And then we can focus on what we're interested in, which is how to design these cues. So the way we designed them were natural, unobstructive cues. And the cues actually outline the object in 3D. And our goal is to examine how it impacts mobility. So whether these cues impact walking. So our procedure includes first, this is really easy right now, so it's also a recommendation for anyone who's interested in this field, but you can actually scan real objects using your phone, and then have a 3D artifact, which you can play around with. So for example, here Lior added these pink outlines for each object. Then you can build, or what we did was to build an obstacle course where we know which real obstacles exist, and we know their locations, and we actually can highlight them in this course. And here you see this black wall, which was to prevent participants from seeing and planning their walking path before they had to walk it. So it's a lot of words. It's easier to just see how it felt for participants. So this is the control condition where they walk. I hope the video is working, but they walk the obstacle course. You can see there are a lot of objects. This was the control condition, and this is the augmented reality enhanced condition. You can see that the objects are marked with a pink outline. So we had two groups of participants in the study, the low vision group and the typically sighted group. Each participant did the walking path once in the control condition, wearing the glasses without any augmentation, and once with the augmentation. It obviously was not the same path. So Lior had to move all of these objects around. It was quite a hassle. But it's important that they wear the glasses in both of the conditions because it allows us to monitor all sorts of parameters through the glasses, like their walking path, for example. And then we can calculate the time it took them, the walking path, collisions, and also get feedback. So for our results, here on the y-axis is the time, and you can see the results for the typically sighted group and for the low vision group. And very clearly, the typically sighted walked much faster than the low vision. So they have a shorter time. But interestingly, for the low vision, the augmented reality condition was faster than the control condition. So it seemed to help them. Also, the path was shorter. So for both groups, the path with the AR glasses was shorter. But we have here also an interaction, so it was more helpful for the low vision group. And most importantly is the collisions. So not all of the low vision participants collide with obstacles, but for those who do collide, they don't collide more, which is already good. But in many cases, they collide less or stay the same. So you can see here the reductions. So as I mentioned before, it's also important to get the qualitative feedback from participants, and they really liked it. So they said the pink helps by making the environment more accessible, making the objects very clear and easy to see. It makes them feel more confident in walking. So overall, the feedbacks were very good. And so this was very encouraging. So to summarize, in Lior's study, we found that overall there was a shorter walking time, shorter paths, fewer collision, and the feedback was very good. So we think that this approach of trying to highlight specific objects is a good way to try to approach how to help people with low vision in walking. So there are some limitations. So as you notice, we chose this prominent pink as a color, and this was based actually on the previous study where participants chose colors they liked but didn't help them so much. So we wanted to choose something that definitely does not, for example, blend in the background. But it seems like this might not be the optimal solution. So some participants couldn't participate because they just didn't see the pink. So ideally, it would be to customize by the object, the background, by the condition. This is actually not that easy to decide how to do this in a smart way. We also think this could be useful for other populations and scenarios. So for example, it could be helpful for tasks that require visual effort or for older adults. And we now actually have already results from another study looking at reading while walking, but how auditory cues can help reduce increase confidence in walking and improve reading. So there are other scenarios that augmented reality can assist. Okay, so following this study, we thought maybe we should try to help also people with night blindness. So one benefit of these augmented reality glasses is that they have depth sensors, which can be used to detect objects even in a dark situation where RGB cameras and object detection might not work as well. So this study was led by Rafael and Muhammad, and in collaboration with Professor Ilan Shimshoni. who's an expert in computer vision from the information science department here at Haifa. So what we did here is, again, a mobility task where participants have to walk from point A to point B. But now objects are actually very much in the dark. And when they are doing the augmented reality, the objects are highlighted with this 3D scanned markers highlights. And in this study, we focused only on participants with RP, so they have night blindness. And here we plotted their results. So we have the number of collisions in the x-axis, so lower is better. And we have the time on the y-axis. And we have two conditions for each participant. So each participant walked actually 3 times each condition wearing the glasses. So with the highlights and without the highlights, each condition 3 times, and we take the average of those. And you can see, for example, this participant, what happens without the assistance, so pretty slow, and a few collisions. And then after, they reduce in both parameters. And another thing that is nice about this study is that the effects are very, very clear. And they're even, I would say, more clear than what you see in the data. The data is pretty clear as well. But the effect is very clear because the participants immediately feel more confident in walking. So another measure that we thought about was to look at the previous literature on hesitations in walking. So this uses changes in speed to try to quantify how confident you are in your walking. And for example, this is not very confident because you keep changing your speed, like when you get close to something. But this is more confident. And we can use this measure and quantify this for both with and without the highlights. And you can see that it's reduced. For some participants, it's huge. And for some participants, almost not at all or very small. But in general, participants are more confident. And in this study, it was very clear that they would like to buy it immediately, like buy the application. So it's very encouraging. And we are continuing this task. So this is the group, and we went to a recent conference in France, IEEE VR, and we presented a few of this study that I mentioned and other studies. And we also started a collaboration in this conference with TU Munich, so Professor Daniel Roth. And we got funding to continue looking at using augmented reality for search tasks for people with low vision. And Muhammad and Rafael got a chance to go to Munich and develop further this application. So I think they really enjoyed it, as you can see. Okay, so this is it. I think we covered most of these studies. Happy to take questions. We have a few more slides, but I think I'll skip them just to give some chance to questions. Yeah.
Sarit, thank you so much. This was really interesting and great results. And I want to invite everybody to unmute yourselves, and let's give Sarit a big applause. Really great work. And if you're happy to take questions, which I understand you are, then Yoram, have you raised your hand, or is it just a mistake? Okay, because Zoom is see, I wonder if this is the low vision aspects of Zoom. Anyway, so I do want to ask, I mean, I have a lot of questions. So just an idea, this is not a question, but I was thinking about the purple or pink surrounding, and you said that some people with low vision actually did not see it. So I wonder if you would flash it, just, I don't know, what, at 2 hertz or 3 hertz, would that, because that's something that, would that penetrate their perception? That's one thing that I'm thinking about because I think that's supposedly should be rather easy to do. Well, maybe not, but this is, it's not outlining again, it's just on and off.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm also wondering, you said that the outline is actually something you have to do in advance. So this is not something you can do online. It's like preparing it offline. And I assume that's a lot of resources, and many people walk around, or our environments are somewhat predictable, but mostly unpredictable. And especially when it comes to, I don't know, new environments or just being on the street
Yeah,
and
of
all the
course.
dynamics. So if you would highlight, now I don't know how you did that, but it's probably high, let's say high spatial resolution highlighting. Now, what if you do this more coarse? So not based on, high resolution, just, more rough estimates with that, because that would be
Yeah.
less resources and maybe maybe faster.
Yeah. This is a great question that we're thinking about quite a lot. So, in terms of just general AI, using AI even as
Mm,
language models, we don't have a great way to assess confidence, right? So how confident the model are. This is something you all experience, right? So you use a model and it sounds very confident, but actually it's saying garbage. So in terms of computer vision, when we tested a real-time computer vision in the study with the night vision, it was terrible because even a short lag is pretty bad. So Muhammad is actually doing his master's thesis on this, where we want to test what lag is acceptable
You mean
and how to
temporal
convey
lag?
confidence.
Temporal lag?
Yeah, exactly. And how to
Mm-hmm.
convey confidence in a visual way that will make them feel confident in walking. Because what happened when we tested real computer vision, it flashes in and out, and this is even more disruptive, right? So it sometimes it takes, sometimes it doesn't. So and it doesn't even stay in place necessarily. So
Oh.
and how can we make it a bit less obstructive? So, for example, do like a blob and then it, merges down. So, or maybe let the user adjust the sensitivity depending on their situations. So, this is definitely, yeah, a good direction.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And yeah, I'm going to continue until there are more questions. I mean, I saw in the last project with the night vision that there were different types of improvements. I mean, different magnitudes. And is that in any way related to their condition or to their difficulty? Did you try to correlate I don't know, because I guess people have differences in the amount of disruption they have in night vision.
Yeah, definitely. Also, it varies a lot between people. We did so. Unfortunately, we didn't do. We can't in the lab do a formal test, and participants usually don't know these results of like any formal test of how their vision, or they forget it, or they don't want to know it. I don't, or they don't want to tell us. I don't know it either way. So we did a functional test of like testing, turning off the lights in the room, and then testing if they can see objects. So we didn't do more than that, but hopefully now that Hagar joined the lab, we can start doing more formal tests of night blindness, maybe with contrast sensitivity, etc.
And then maybe, I mean, probably you would be able to recruit them again, to re-recruit them and maybe test and see if that's, I mean, correlates to the improvement that they had when they were tested? Because I guess it's not deteriorating.
Oh, no, it does.
Yeah,
No, I think it will be irrelevant at this point because you can't test it a year later and expect it to be the same because some people have
change.
yeah. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Really nice. Ellie, I see you've raised your hand, so I assume, do you want to ask?
Yes, I did raise my hand.
Okay.
So for the issue of night vision, we've done a lot of work on night vision in Boston, but we decided at some point that the weather in Boston is prohibitive for doing night vision studies, and but in Israel it's still workable, I guess. But the problem is beyond that. The problem is that the night vision loss requires environment that's really dark to be consequential for the patient on the one hand. So if you walk even in Haifa, let alone in Tel Aviv, it's not dark enough in most places to make a difference for these patients. So the fact that they measure as having night vision impairment on the instrument, the level of night vision where the level of darkness or scotopic vision that they need is not representing it. On the other hand, they also change their lifestyle. Most of them don't go out at night.
yeah.
So providing solutions will looks optimal or hopeful, but they really are not ready to go out and face the risks, which are not chairs on the road. There's very few chairs are in the road or stuff like that. They trip on curbs and stairs, and that's where the risk is. And so it needs to address this. But related to this, we have proposed, instead of using the augmented in the HMD, to use augmented in the real world by projecting light. If you project light on the environment, after it's been detected by the system that there is an obstacle, then the pattern of light will be visible, will be locked to the environment, so it will be immediate and all kind of good things to do that if you want. But I'm still concerned that we're not paying enough attention to the psychosocial aspect of the lifestyle of these patients, that they will not use anything if they come home from work and don't go out at night. And to convince them with a device like this will be a major impact. And other things, I didn't see the pink or had great difficulty seeing it.
Yeah.
So it is indeed a problem. And we have a problem like this in many presentations that the graphs are made so that those few inconsequential males with color deficiency are not able to see that. So I'll lay down now. I will.
Well, great comments, and I agree. It's a huge issue. I don't think it's a minor issue because they do change their lifestyle. And talking to participants that came to the lab, they do have a problem when walking back home from work, for example. So it's not bright enough for them to feel confident. Just walking from the bus station, for example. Whether this solution can be deployed tomorrow, no, it's not at all already. Whether it's the best solution, I'm also not sure. So I'm happy to hear more about the WorldLock
Sure.
lights. It sounds interesting.
So we should talk more, you and I.
Sure. So, Marissa. Hi.
Hi everyone. Very nice talk, Sarit.
Thank you.
Hi Yafa, hi Sharon and others. I just wanted to, that was a great talk. So I was very interested about the children results, and I was wondering two things. And one is, if I understood correctly, when you were training them in auditory and vision, there was a same different task, correct?
So the children didn't do the audio visual. It's
Oh,
just the
no, that
adults.
was adults, sorry. So two
Okay.
questions, two different questions then.
Okay.
For the adults with the audio visual task,
Yeah.
so it was the same different protocol, correct?
So for the auditory, yes. For the motion, no. It was a clockwise, counterclockwise.
I see. Yeah, so, okay. So I was wondering if you had a task in the audio domain in which also you have more graded response, whether you think the magnitudes would be the same.
What do you mean more?
The magnitude of the learning would be the same, right? Because in one
Okay.
task, you're doing a more graded response then in the visual domain than in the auditory.
I can say that we did not find correlations in the learning between the visual and the auditory. We did find correlations within the task, as I mentioned. So between when you do visual training and you shift to auditory training, the amount of learning you had in the visual correlates to the amount of learning you'll have in the visual when you shifted the modality.
Okay. Yeah, the question was more in terms of the sort of the dependent variable. How comparable the same different is with the clockwise, counterclockwise. So maybe that's just something to think about.
Yeah, it's not comparable. Yeah, I
And
agree. I mean, yeah, if you have ideas on how to make it better comparison, I'm happy to hear.
And in the children, could you tell us a little bit more about the training that they did at home?
Yeah, so they
like how old are they, and how is it enforced that they really do that amount of training and so forth? I think it's really interesting, the results that you got, so that's why I'm interested in learning more.
Yeah, so
about
all of the training is now actually following your advice, like I think a couple of years ago. All of the training is the same for all of the groups. So, and the training is based on getting the threshold from your previous day, and then training on interleaved staircases that are starting at different starting points according to your previous thresholds. So they train on their own computer. They do a short calibration procedure. It's not like you leave them alone. The students obviously call them to make sure they do the training. So it is a hassle, but it's better than coming into the lab, which at the end of the day, I think that's why people have a difficulty with perceptual learning studies. And if we want to do an intervention, it will be better to do it at home.
Sure. No, I think, and with patients and so forth, it's the same thing that we have to do, for example, Mr. Huxley, right? But but that's why I was interested in seeing with children how easy you can enforce that, whether you need a student to be making sure that they're logging on, whether you, and so forth. So, and in terms of the conditions, the stimulus conditions, so they calibrate in their own computer.
Yes. So beginning of each session, they have to calibrate their own computer, and they get a specific unique link for this training session.
Yeah. Good. And I don't know if in this study you were interested, or in other studies you're interested in them maintaining fixation, but you know that Dennis Pelly now has this application that one can use, right?
No, I don't.
Okay, so there's a very nice short way, I think it's called Easy Read, So Dennis Pelly's group has published an application, and now John Winauer and him have a follow-up, but it's a very simple way that we are now going to start using with stroke patients to make sure that they maintain fixation. It's not that you can study the eye movements per se, but I'll send you the link if you don't find it. It was published last year, I think.
Great. Yeah, that sounds
And great
good.
talk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have two things. So first of all, I wanted to say about the training and the between modality effects. The training was between, let's say, temporal information in the vision and temporal information in auditory, and it's also so you showed that it happened less on frequency, spatial frequency. So I'm thinking about whether it's the fact that it's dynamic information in both modalities, and maybe the fact that MT is also connected to auditory cortex. So maybe it's because of the temporal aspects that there's modality influences. And one more thing I wanted to just what Ellie was talking about the idea of flashing on the environment and the fact that people are mostly afraid or have issues with stairs. So stairs are somewhat, I mean, there is more regularity to stairs than to just any like arbitrary. So maybe that's something that can be taken into account. But there's also an issue of the speed that you move in the environment, because a light has to focus in some angle. But if you move more quickly, you need that angle to change and then maybe to accommodate the power of the light, because otherwise you're going to hit or you're going to reach some area in your visual field much quicker if you're moving faster. So anyway, so the beam of light should, so there's, anyway, it just my thought.
I mean, I think actually, I don't know how Ellie implemented it, but we are in a different study. We take into account the participants' speed when we have the audio alerts. So it's not in the studies that I showed today, but you can measure the speed of walking and then take it into account and then take depth into account. So
yeah, because it really does affect. And my assumption is that people with low vision probably move slower in, overall. Not only they're more hesitant, but what you showed, and maybe their kinematics are less smooth, but also probably they're slower. And I was also thinking about, what Marisa said about the children. So I was wondering, because I mean, you showed that they trained or learned the same, but it struck me how the thresholds were so high relative in the motion current, and you said that's because maybe the exposure was shorter, but that means that in motion coherence you need time to accumulate the information, otherwise you have no idea, it looks too random. So I'm wondering if this issue in a way would, if you change the exposure duration of the stimulus, would you then see a difference in the learning phase? Like, would adults be able to learn faster because of their apparently more knowledge of the environment, of motion trajectories? I'm just a thought.
I thought it would be okay. So the third group that I didn't show is actually longer duration, shorter durations for children, and we still get the effect. So I only showed a group that actually has longer duration for children, because I guess hypothesis would be the opposite of what you said, is that children maybe in longer duration would be able to
perform better. Yeah.
They did slightly, but it wasn't much of a difference, and the general effect was identical. So
the general training effect, but so
no, not training. This I'm talking about
the exposure,
the priors.
The priors. I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So really interesting. Oh, I see that Marisa has sent the easy eyes
I'll just share the
to
link
everyone.
in case people are interested. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So, Sarit, I want to thank you so much for a really
Thank you.
interesting talk in so many directions. And, I hope you are successful in your ability to improve people's lives. That's the most important thing. So, thank you again for joining us and sharing your research with us. And next week, we will have here Professor Rafi Malach, who will be telling us about new results and things that he's investigating. So, again, thank you so much, Sarit, and have a nice continuation of this week. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Ciao.